I work with a lot of boys and young men who are hyper conscious of how they look. They are hyper conscious of how they look at this particular point in time, but also hyper focused on what they want to look like in the future. And in some spaces and places, this becomes not just a pursuit of betterment, but an obsession rooted in perceived inadequacy. And we are seeing and are probably aware of, shifts in culture, specifically the presence and pertinence of Looksmaxxing culture, this hyper optimization culture that we're seeing across different subcultures of the internet, and also in sort of more mainstream conversations and mainstream algorithms. And I think it's really important that we take the time to speak to young people in general, but specifically in relation to this podcast and what this podcast speaks to, young men and masculinities. Because I'll keep it straight up. I'll keep it really honest. I think for me growing up, I definitely had some awareness that I wasn't particularly happy with how I looked, and I wanted to improve my physique, or I wanted to improve how much muscle I had, all that type of things. And if you speak to a lot of different men from many different generations, as I have done, they will often speak to that awareness and that sort of at times hyper awareness too. That hyper awareness and that desire to look a certain way and to present as quote unquote attractive, or present as more attractive, has been present and present across culture for hundreds and hundreds of years. But I think what we're seeing right now is the intersection, or the compounding rather, of social media culture and interest media culture, algorithms, and lots of hyper viral content mixed in with that cultural pursuit of look this way, look better, because it makes it more attractive. They're combining, and they're sort of meshing together in ways that for young people online who are trying to make sense of who they are, trying to make sense of the world around them, how they want to interact and be perceived and experience the world around them, are coming up against content messaging that is at times consistently telling them that they need to look better, they need to be slimmer, need to have better jawlines, need to be more muscular, that people love muscle. The people that you want to date, they love muscle, they love strength, they love particular jawlines, they love particular hairstyles, and they love this type of skin care, and all this type of stuff that is merging, for me, aspects of capitalist culture, patriarchy, and in and amongst that, the sort of body dysmorphia, let's call a spade, in and amongst that packaging. And I think for me, one of the things that I do with young people that I work with all the time is that I'm constantly reminding them that your appearance, what you bring into the space as you are right now, is enough. And I've spoken about this in previous episodes, but this is specifically important when you're talking to young people who are going to the gym for the first time, and they're doing this thing where they're, comparing muscles, or they're looking, and you can see them kind of looking and identifying muscles, and they're proud of the muscle coming up, or they're looking for more muscle. They're saying that they need more muscle in this space and that place. And they're looking at their bodies not as a vessel of who they are at this point in time, but as something that isn't deserving of acknowledgement, that isn't deserving of recognition, that isn't currently good enough. And at this point in time, they need to be better. There is this constant relationship with their own bodies of, this isn't good enough. And because this isn't good enough, I need to work harder. I need to do better. And there is this sort of self-loathing that we've packaged in spaces as personal development. And I like to speak to young people about that, specifically young men, because I've seen it over the past few years working in schools. You'll go into a school sometimes. This has happened on many of occasions. You go into schools and you've got 13, 14-year-olds shaking up a protein shake as they're going into their first lesson of the day. And they're talking about their supplement stacks, and they're talking about, their splits. So for those of you that aren't familiar with what I'm saying when I say splits, the training split, they're going to the gym much younger, and they're doing training programs and training splits and training sessions that are really, really difficult. And that in itself, what they see online, what they process, and what they watch, they want to kind of emulate that. I understand that. But the ways in which they are going about trying to attain a specific look, or a specific physique style, or a specific way of, filling up a shirt, I'm seeing that at increasingly younger ages, and I'm seeing increased levels of dissatisfaction, kind of confidence that's masquerading as I'm working to get better. oh yeah, no, I'm just trying to get to this level, I'm just working hard in the gym. I'm keeping my head down, that type of stuff. I'm running this, supplement stack, etc. I've even heard of young people in the context of classroom space and discussions talking about, when I'm 18, I might run a tren stack, or I might run, some steroids. That's really concerning for me. And it's not something that hasn't, this hasn't just emerged out of thin air. This has been in and across our culture for many, many, many generations. But again, what I'm seeing in the spaces and places that I work within is this hyper awareness of fitness spaces, way in which the sort of bodybuilding industries work, and this awareness of, when I get to this age, I can run this, or I'm thinking about running performance enhancing drugs to get myself bigger faster. There is a pursuit of getting to a desired look as quickly as possible. And whenever we're dealing with that in any form of life, I want to get there as quickly as possible. When I get there, then I'll feel good enough. What happens is, when you get there, it's not what you thought it was. It was, oh, now I need to add this in, now I need to add this in. And we've glamorized never being satisfied with how we look as a culture, specifically in masculinity spaces. There's always this pursuit of betterment, 1% better every day in relation to our bodies. And whilst it's important to prioritize health and fitness, there is a fine line between prioritizing health and fitness and becoming so obsessed with how you look, how your physique looks, how you present in a t-shirt, and what muscles are bigger than what other muscles, that becomes such an obsession that you don't see a body that you're happy with. You see a body that you're constantly dissatisfied with. And this doesn't just apply to hyper fitness culture, it also applies to young people who are trying to perhaps lose weight, right? And in that process, they are met with this idea of, I need to look this certain way, and I really don't look this particular way. So now there's this double layer and this double pressure of having to get down to a certain way or look a certain way in a certain amount of time. I've seen clips online of young people essentially effectively, starving themselves, young men starving themselves to get down to a specific weight. And, they're doing it in the way of trying to look shredded and ripped as fast as possible. And I'm concerned about this because when it comes to any conversation around masculinity, we need to be instilling in young people, young masculinities, that who they are in this moment right now is enough. Who they are right now in this space is deserving of love, respect. When I talk about love, I'm not just talking about romantic love, I'm talking about self-love, right? And what I'm seeing increasingly in the spaces and places that I operate in is boys, specifically younger boys, sort of like just before hitting teens, not just being dissatisfied with how they look, but being really aware of how they look and really aware of how they look in comparison to others, and almost looking at how they look in comparison to others, saying, well, this person's more likely to get this particular person, or they're like more likely to date this. But I'm seeing some of that manospheric culture permeate in that consciousness, all in and around the way in which young people feel they look and what they feel they need to do to improve it. And this doesn't just apply to the gym, this applies to, jawlines. I've seen the jawline craze that's going on, like how to get your jawline, looking better, and how to make your sort of, your face pop better, and how to make a more aesthetic face and jawline. Like, all of this stuff that we're speaking to in this space is all about maximizing looks, hence why Looksmaxxing is the sort of frame that's often used. But in a culture where Looksmaxxing is becoming increasingly mainstreamed and increasingly placed into youth consciousness, we need to be really intentional with how we're speaking to young people about how they see themselves. In this context specifically, as I've said, younger masculinities. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to be encouraging this idea of, yeah, work hard in the gym, without digging in the soul of that young person's heart to recognize why. What is it? Is you interested in health and fitness? Where are you getting some of these ideas from, and who are you engaging with in the context of what you're watching online? Is it bodybuilding culture? Is it something else? Is it something outside of bodybuilding culture? What's inspiring you to get into the gym? Not from a position of automatically assuming the worst, but being really considerate and attuned to the fact that we're existing in a space online now where Looksmaxxing culture is very much understood and very much in the awareness of a range of different young people. Whilst some young people may not partake in it, a lot of young people have seen it. And there's a lot of Looksmaxxing-esque styled comments and jokes and facial sort of, I would say facial holes, but like facial expressions that come from that specific subculture. And if we can't see that, if we don't recognize that, we're not able to have that attuned, compassionate discourse around where's that coming from for you. I suppose one of my main concerns in this space around in engaging and making room to have conversations with young men around how they look at this point in time is being really clear and intentional that prioritizing health and fitness and having pride in the way you look is really important, but how you look and obsessing about how you look to a point where you're doing it for the validation from other people more than you're interested in acknowledging the magnificence of who's in front of us right now. I have this saying in my work that, we're all magnificent human beings, all on journeys to where we want to be, all on journeys to, work to those next levels of development. But we have to be able to take stock of the magnificence that's in front of us right now. And I'm not just talking from an aesthetic point of view. I'm talking from a sort of spiritual point of view as well. This sense of, if we're so locked into future versions of ourselves, we never take time to acknowledge and appreciate the present version of us. And that present version of us is absolutely deserving and worthy of self-love, recognition, admiration. It's not always a future tense pursuit. It can be a present tense appreciation. So that's for me where I'm sort of engaging in the sort of intersection that I'm kind of employing when I'm working with young people, not just young men, but obviously with the context of this specific episode, how that's making itself known in masculinity, subcultures and masculinity cultures too. We need to have conversations with young people about recognizing that what they see online is often not a reflection of reality, and who they are and what they bring to the space right now, is not just good enough. It's worthy enough, and it's deserving of that love and respect and admiration. When I'm talking about love, again, to be really clear, that's self-love. That self-love is massively important. If we're not having those conversations with young people, if we're not making intentional space to acknowledge, you're probably seeing a lot of images online that are giving you the impression that you need to look like this, walk like this, talk like this, be built like this, wear this, have your hair like this, have your jawline like this, all of this kind of stuff that's on their algorithm, shaping and influencing how they see the world and how they ultimately see themselves. If we're not having those attuned conversations, those curiously explorative conversations, digging into the soil of the hearts of young people and the communities that we exist within and work within and serve within, if we're not reminding the young people in our space, in our care, in the places that we, work alongside and work with young people, if we're not telling them consistently that who they are is enough, you are enough as you are and you always will be enough, if we're not having those constant dialogues, then the pull of the online sphere that constantly, in many ways, tells people that they're not good enough and they need to be better can take hold and take precedence. I'm going to stop the episode there. I just wanted to come on because at the time of recording, full transparency, I was kind of looking into some of the current Looksmaxxing trends and some of the things and ideas that we're seeing online, and it activated me a little bit. And I just wanted to come on and share with you some of my thoughts and ideas at this point in time. By no means, as I've mentioned at the start, a big sort of breakdown of what Looksmaxxing culture is, all that type of stuff. There's great creators that are having this conversation, that are shedding light on this, and I'll link them in the description of these episodes so you can check them out. But really and truly, it's about surfacing how I'm approaching it in the work that I do and the sort of lens that I take in this space at this point in time. So I hope you found this episode useful. I hope you found it interesting, and hopefully open some doors for further exploration. Stay well, stay blessed, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.